Hello and welcome to the October 12th Mayor and City Council meeting. The first item on our agenda is always the Pledge of Allegiance. And I would like to ask former council member Jerry Orleans to come forward and lead us in the pledge.
Guard, I didn't have a speech ready for this. Anyway, it's the greatest country in the world. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Councilmember Tizer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Judy. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. Thank you. Now on to the good news. We've got the first item on my report is Keep Roswell Beautiful Annual Report Summary, July 1 of 2020 through June 30th of 2021. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I'd just like to introduce some members from the Keep Roswell Beautiful Board to report on their annual report. Unfortunately, Nikki Belmonte, the Executive Director, is having some family concerns, so she couldn't be here herself. And a lot of what has happened over the last year really rolls to Nikki and the Board of Directors. So I'm really pleased to introduce the Chairman of the Board, Mr. David Wright, and the Treasurer of Keep Roswell Beautiful, Mr. Brent Hensler.
All right, well, thank you very much. I'd like to especially thank Mayor Henry for the opportunity. We always appreciate this annual event. Also, thank you to Director Dan Skalski and Deputy Director Sharon Izzo. I'd also like to thank all the support services manager, Brian Watson. Thank you for your great support, guidance, and collaboration. And also thank you so much to Rec and Parks Department for doing amazing work, as well as transportation. But thank you so much. This has been a year of refocus and growth. KRB just finished a 6-month program where we redesigned our planning process and helped to redefine our focus. Keep Roswell Beautiful has a new vision. The new vision is a Roswell with healthy land, clean water, and a vibrant environmental culture. And hopefully you've seen some of that around Roswell, and might have seen some of us picking up litter and or cleaning at Rivers Alive and that sort of thing, as well as storm drain stenciling. I'm going to turn over the next 2 pages to Brent. He's our treasurer, Brent Hensler.
Council and Mayor Henry, my name is Brent Hensler. I'm the treasurer of Keep Roswell Beautiful. I just wanted to give you some numbers and figures of our activities over the past year. We have doubled the size of our board. We have a great new aggressive membership program. In 2020 until 2021, our projects have benefited the city and the community by Adopt a Road. We have collected 532 bags of trash and removed from 248 miles of the city's roadways by 45 volunteer groups. And the Rivers Alive, concentrating on the Chattahoochee and surrounding watersheds, we removed 1,264 pounds in 2020 and an entire dumpster of privets, a very invasive species. Last month for Rivers Alive, we removed over 2,250 pounds, which is an 80% increase year over year. The Earth balloon, which if you haven't seen it, is a giant inflatable classroom which depicts the globe and the and the earth. Last year, over 200 students were educated on geography and the rewards of proper environmental stewardship. The last item is the Roswell Community Litter Index, where on the same, just one Saturday, we give an index of our cleanliness and report that to Keep America Beautiful. On a scale of 0, the best, to 4, it was 1.6. We've always been below 2.0, but there's still work to be done. We have charted more than 1,300 volunteer hours accumulated in making our vision of Roswell a reality. In closing, I want to give kudos to Mr. Rick Campbell, who has organized our membership program, and he virtually single-handedly has been responsible for our new membership, helping to create an 80% increase in revenue. So, appreciate it. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Let's hear it for KRB. Our heartfelt thanks for everything you do in the community. It is truly important, and we do notice it on a day-to-day basis. And trust me, people let us know when they're seeing our parks or streams littered. And thank you all for everything that you're doing, because you're keeping us the Roswell that we have always wanted to be and will be. So thank you again. The next item on the agenda, I am going to turn this over to Mr. Fisher for an introduction for our new employee that we're very excited to welcome this evening. Mr. Fisher.
And we are very excited. We have a new community development director that is on staff and has joined us yesterday and has jumped right into working with us and doing a great job. His name is Jason Gaines. Jason, come on up and let everybody get a good look at you. So Jason comes to us from Cobb County. He's been in there planning. He's done economic development, been in the business for quite some time. I won't tell how long, although I don't think he's old enough for that to matter yet. So it's great to have him here. His education's from Georgia Tech, so some will be happy about that, and others would say go Dogs. But I think either way, we're glad that he's here. It's in regional planning concentration, then a Bachelor of Arts in Urban and Regional Planning also. He's got certifications from the American Institute of Certified Planners, Certificate of Local Government Management from Carl Vinson Institute. So he's interested in local government in all aspects of it. I find that very intriguing. And then from the continuing education from the Georgia Academy for Economic Development, Region 3. So Jason, we're glad that you're here. Welcome aboard. And anything you'd like to say to get it started, you feel free.
Well, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you, City Administrator, Interim City Administrator. It's an honor, and a pleasure, and a privilege to be here. I thank you all for seeing what you saw in me and having the confidence in me to bring me here to lead the community development efforts here in the city of Roswell. There's a lot of good work to be done, and I'm just happy to be here to take part in it and help leave a positive impression on this city and what it has to offer its citizens and its visitors. So again, thank you, and I look forward to working with each of you.
Thank you, Jason. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gaines, and I would like council to join me. Welcome to the team. The last item on my agenda is a transportation process update by Mr. Fisher. And while Mr. Fisher gets settled, I had promised to the public that we would be updating you on a regular basis on transportation processes that we're putting into place so that Roswell will function and carry on forward in a much more productive manner. Mr. Fisher.
So this isn't going to be near as pretty as some of the presentations that you've seen in the past or ones that you've seen today, but that's not what this is all about. You'll see that we're going to be tracking, as Mayor Henry, as you alluded to, there's several recommendations that we have received from an outside organization in regards to our project processes, our transportation project processes, and even I think we're going to see a lot of this moving over into all parts of the city of how to track and progress through our different projects. But you have made a commitment to make sure we address each and every recommendation that's in that in the report that we received. So what we've got, there's about 26, and we're not even going to be dealing with all those tonight, but they're all in the spreadsheet, ready to start working forward. I'm going to talk about the first 5 tonight. In the report, there was a list of absolute minimum, you need to do these. And there was 5 of those that came off right out at the top. And the first ones are the ones that we have actually already started working on as a team. And the project manager is one of the first things to make sure we have dedicated project managers identified for a single point, for somebody that owns some of these projects, the projects that we do, and who is the official voice. So in looking at the report, each report is the recommendation, the category, which is a description of it, who it's assigned to. In this particular case, you'll see that it's assigned to our transportation director to continue to follow through. The actual start date, we've already started on this, and we've already started meetings. So the start date is today. What I'm going to be doing at each one of our meetings for updates, I'm only going to be focusing really on this last column, which is the notes, where we're doing and where we're at for each one. On this particular one, we're going to be reviewing and formalizing the implementation of the City of Roswell project management process document. We have within this city a full document that was designed by engineers from across different departments and different people in the city that outlines how project management ought to be done. What we're going to do is we're going to formalize that process. We're going to implement that process. We're going to bring it to you at the October 27th Transportation Committee meeting, because I want you to see that and understand what it is that we're going to be following. Once you've reviewed and we formalize that process document, we'll be established in writing with SOPs, the standard operating procedures that have been called out in many different places in the report that we got back. Ultimately, those standard operating procedures will be done by March 30th. So that's 6 months, but each one of the categories are going to be worked on from today forward, moving forward. You'll see document at the end, which will have it all memorialized. So I'll be coming to you each meeting talking about the next milestones that we've hit. So I don't want you to be concerned that you don't see the SOPs. That's when they'll all be put together. They're going to be developed from day one. So don't be afraid that we're pushing out 6 months. That's not what's happening. So that's the first one. Project progression was the next one that was brought up, that we should be proceeding according to guidelines, according to SOPs. You'll see this one is the ODOT director and project manager or managers that will be working on that progression. The SOPs will memorialize the guidelines and the best practices for project progression. The guidelines and procedures currently utilized in successful projects will be formalized and included in the SOPs for all projects. And again, this is one that we start working on today. You'll ultimately see you'll see this in the completed SOPs when they come forth in March. The next one is an agenda. I'm sorry, I went too far. Acquisition policy for low value properties. This is one you'll be seeing in October at the committee meeting to legally be entitled to acquire properties that have low appraisal values, not doing these one-on-one parcel purchases for just low properties. We saw that a couple of different places in the report. So this is something that the RDOT director and our city attorney will be working on. We'll be bringing to you, Mayor and Council, the information at the RDOT committee meeting. After that discussion, it will come back to November 8th. Council meeting as a resolution, and that one will be the first one totally completed off of this list, because like I said, we're working on each one of them as time goes on. This one will be completed almost right away. The next one of the top 5 is acquisition of property checklist. This is a checklist that will be designed that will have all of the steps to accomplish from the time of identification of a property when we're acquiring property to bringing it to the attention of you all, Mayor and Council, through a full vote. So there will be a formalized checklist that will be used with standardized forms, standardized language, and everything will go through that checklist before it comes to you. Our director will be working on that. That checklist is going to be detailed, and we want to make sure we're not missing any parts along the way. The November RDOT committee meeting, you will see that checklist. Once it's approved in the meeting, we will be using that checklist. You'll see it's finished final in the SOPs. And that's why you see the SOPs are out a little bit longer. We're trying to write them all and put them into one standard operating procedure booklet, but they will be completed as we move forward from today. And I think the last one, the last one that I want to talk about tonight is the agenda approval process. We need to create a robust and demanding agenda approval process. This is where you'll hear from the project manager, that person, that contact, that authority for that project, not several authorities, that authority. You'll hear from the project manager. They'll be there to present approvals of agenda items across the related departments on a project, which includes that checklist we just talked about, the acquisition checklist, when the request is for city council approval of a property. When you see a city council approval for property and you don't see a checklist, let somebody know, because I expect that to be seen every time. And that will also be in the SOPs, but we want that accountability. So the RDOT director, the city attorney, and the project manager will be working to go through that agenda approval process, make sure that it's designed properly, that it has everything in it. You'll see that at the RDOT committee on January 26th, and then it'll come into the SOPs on March 30th. So these are the top, and I haven't had this very long, so we've just started, haven't even got it in the backup document yet. So these were the 5 that were said at a minimum, get on these. So we're on these. We already have dates on these when these will be coming back, and you'll see them. We've got a meeting set up again next week, the first of next week, to get started on looking at the other ones. We'll eventually work down all through them, and I'll have updates at each council meeting to let you all and to let the citizens know our progress on committing to every one of the recommendations in the report, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher, and I would like to reiterate that this will be an ongoing agenda item under the mayor's report. Moving forward, I don't see a foreseeable end to it. I think that we've got a lot of room for improvement. Does council have any questions or comments? Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Fisher, for putting this together. I just have a question. As we implement policies and procedures in our transportation department, in other licensed industries, and I even think in engineering, there are peer reviews. Is it possible to have a peer review of our processes by an entity? I'm asking the question. I don't know if something like that exists for a process system like this.
You know, I've thought about that, how we can make sure that we're getting everything in there that we need. I would answer that right now by saying we kind of did that up front. We got our peer review of what we're doing, and we've got our recommendations. So I would like to take these recommendations, put them together, and then ultimately use more across the city and just in other projects also. So I think we're going to be reviewing as we go, but I hear what you're saying. And if we can get it all put together, and there might be certain aspects we could review on, yeah, we could probably send that out and have them look at it. Sure. We want it thorough. We want the same thing. Absolutely.
Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. So thanks, Michael, for bringing this forward. For the record, could you please state which report included all these recommendations?
So the Gerard and Davis report included all of the recommendations. They had the 5 ones that I've gotten started on anyway, listed as here, at the minimum, you got to get these things formalized and memorialized. Some we do, some we don't necessarily. We have a lot of successful projects already, but we need to make sure we formalize these and we get these memorialized into the checklist. So they had those 5, then they actually hired a consultant to work with some of the engineering stuff that came up with the rest that we're still working on to address these down here. So there was another 20 or so, but it's all part of the Gerard and Davis report.
Good, thanks. So it's also the one that knows as Oxbow Road Project Report?
That's what started the report, yes, sir.
Great, thank you.
It's also known as my investigative report.
Correct.
Additional questions from council, comments? Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Yes, sir, please come forward.
My name is Jason Yowell. I'm a candidate for mayor. A couple of things about this process that I find interesting. The first is that you're missing a big piece of the puzzle. As a real estate developer, you know what I don't do? I don't spend money on final plans for land I don't own. And I don't understand why, first of all, you wouldn't have a prime directive going to RDOT for the design process that focuses on minimize the amount of right-of-way and private property acquisition in your design. The second is get your concept plans done and then identify the right-of-way land that you need. The process, and it's on your RDOT website, every project shows concept design, project design, right-of-way acquisition. This is where you get into trouble. Because if you don't own the land and you spent all the money for the detailed development drawings, now you're putting yourselves in the position where you have to subscribe to the fallacy of sunk costs. Well, we spent all this money on these plans, we spent all this time, we're committed, we don't really have much of a choice. We got to do what it takes to acquire the land that we need. And then you get into a situation where you can have recalcitrant property owners that go, no way. You found yourself in this position with Oxbow, and you already had the plans. If you didn't have the plans drawn, you could have gone, this is going to be problematic. We have to find another way before you've committed all the money to the detailed drawings. It's madness. It's not the way intelligent people go about with development projects. Oxbow is such a catastrophe. I still don't think you're learning the lessons of it. It's mind-boggling. The hardware store was so unnecessary to purchase. You could have gone, Oxbow was already aligned at a 90-degree angle with Highway 9. You could have gone straight across. Would have been cheaper to build the retaining walls and go through to connect to an existing right-of-way that already exists in the middle of the church property. The cut-through, oh my gosh, that cut-through to the Mill Village that nobody wanted, that is still mystifying. If you wanted to fix a problem on Maple Street, guess what? At the end of Maple Street, there's a existing right-of-way that you didn't have to buy to connect into Sloane Street. Would have solved that problem, but no, you gotta have this ridiculous cut-through. Again, serves no function. Nobody wanted it, except maybe the developer that got paid for the land he didn't own and you still haven't recovered the money from. I still don't see anything that, about going after the money that Southern Pines was paid, $299,000. There's no criminal investigation for fraud. There's no, just any effort whatsoever to recover the money. I've asked before, where's the money? Did you get it back? And I've never gotten an answer to that. And it's pretty clear that you paid the money and you didn't get it back in the Oxbow report. Wow, what are you going to do about that? I don't know how you close a piece of property and pay the money and not have a valid warranty deed, but, hey, what do I know? You are so quick to point out that I'm not an expert. I've just developed a lot of property and bought and sold a lot of real estate, but just doesn't make me an expert. Designing roads, building roads doesn't make me an expert, but yeah, your staff, they're the experts, I get it. And you still don't have a process that addresses designing stuff to go on land you don't own. Wow, that's fascinating. You still haven't learned anything from Oxbow. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak? Yes, ma'am, please come forward.
Janet Russell, Roswell resident. I'm very glad to see that you're going to have some kind of project director and manager, because I've been asking for these for years. I ended up being the unpaid project manager of several projects in Roswell, and I'd like to give you a couple of examples. Do you remember when we did the new streetscaping on Oak Street and they put in trees and some benches and some sidewalks? It was nice. And we also put in new sidewalks on Highway 9 that run along the front of the historic cemetery. And I was talking to each of them because it was two different companies doing those projects. The sidewalks didn't meet at the corner of Highway 9 and Oak Street. There was, at least from me to Mr. Fisher, distance to the corners where the crosswalks and the traffic lights were. What? And I went to RDOT and said, excuse me, you forgot to connect the sidewalks. I talked to the managers of each of the projects, different construction companies. They said, we're sorry, ma'am, we're only allowed to do it to right here. And the other one said, we're only allowed to do it right here. Where in the world was the RDOT person who said they have to come together? That's the whole point of a sidewalk at an intersection with a traffic light, to cross to a school. There's the problem. Need another example? We got $1,645,000 from MARTA to make MARTA bus stop improvements. The council at the time chose to spend $250,000 on actual bus stop improvements. $500,000 got diverted to a supposed improvement on Holcomb Bridge over 400. That money was never used. Well, they never did the project, and about 2 years ago, RDOT came and asked for $500,000 for pedestrian improvements on that bridge. I asked where the first $500,000 went, and there was no answer, and nobody decided I should know. But fast forward, because they took the other $900,000 and used them on pet projects around Roswell and wrote them up to look like they affected MARTA, but they did not. A good example, at the town square, you know how they've put an apron so that the big tractor trailers can make a right turn and go onto 120 because it's pretty dangerous? Well, on the other side of that, where Mimosa is, they also put a bump out of the sidewalk because, according to the previous RDOT director, we don't want people to have such a long distance to cross Mimosa Boulevard. They need to get from the square to the mill, where the mill kitchen is. I thought, oh, that's interesting. I don't have a crosswalk for 1.2 miles on Highway 9, but we don't matter. The problem was they had put that in, and they had put in where the bump out was with a little tiny sidewalk, not a whole one, and they didn't connect the two corners with a sidewalk on the square facing 120. What are these? They need to upgrade what people are smoking. They need to get it right the first time, because I'm tired of being the unpaid project manager as the pedestrian advocate. Another one, we redid the town square. They put that wrought iron fence up for safety. They put a lovely gate that leads from the square down to Highway 9, which leads to nothing, grass, and power sign indicator poles. But you know, a gate gives you the idea that it's okay to go there. And when people open that gate, they are plunged into deathless because it's this wide with grass and you cannot walk in either direction. Another project that doesn't connect one end with the other. Why? I'm not an engineer, but I've been reading a lot where engineers should never design streets. I've been doing a lot of studying on it. And this is an example. If you want me to be your project manager, I'm real good at connecting dots. I'll be glad to get on the payroll, and I will earn my money. But currently, I have been the unpaid project manager for about 10 years, and it's really old. Somebody's got to oversee whole projects so that they are organically connected, not this one over here, and this one over here, and a banana over here, and an orange over here. They have to be connected, or you've absolutely wasted your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak? Seeing no one approach, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. And we will move on to the Admin Finance Department. Councilmember Marie Wilsey.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Item number 3, approval of a budget amendment in the amount of $58,000 for the Roswell Arts Fund FY 2022 Art Around Roswell program. Just before we hear from some folks about the Art Around proposal, I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. This item was presented to us at committee, a request for funding to begin the Art Around Roswell process, going out for artist submissions and to begin the public engagement process for this program so that we can have the new sculptures in place in the park in the spring. During the committee meeting, we also asked for the department heads to submit any other emergency or immediate requests that they would like us to consider before the mid-year budget review. We have 2 requests on that were sent in. The first, actually both from Rec and Parks. The first is a gymnastics floor replacement in the amount of $50,000 and physical activity center roof replacement. The department is awaiting pricing. We will be hearing more, I believe, from Director Leatherman on those 2 projects. I would like to say, just to kind of help guide the discussion, that my intention is to make a motion when the time is right to approve the $58,000 for Roswell Arts Fund to be funded from the excess FY 2021 hotel motel tax, and also $50,000 for the gymnastics floor replacement, which will come from some available funds in the general fund, which was recommended by Director Lockett. And the physical activity center roof replacement, we will, awaiting further clarification in the entire budget from Director Leatherman at a different time. He can tell us a little bit more about that, but that funds are potentially are probably available if council decides to allocate in advance of the mid-year. So I just wanted to set the stage a little bit for what we'll be discussing tonight. And with that, Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Councilmember Wilsey. That is correct. The item started off with the $58,000 request for the Art Around. I don't know if Alon is. He is. Come on up if you have any additional comments, or if Mayor and Council may have any questions for you regarding the Art Around. But I think the request is, as stated, you saw the PowerPoint at the committee, so I don't know that we'll need to get into that again. But certainly the request is there. There's $38,000 that the Roswell Arts Fund has already raised to go with this amount to make the Art Around for this next season available. So I offer up if you have any questions for myself or Mr. Butchett, we'll be glad to answer those.
Does council have any questions? Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you. So, yeah, as we had discussed at the committee, I certainly support and am interested in supporting the Arts Fund and the Arts Around Roswell program. And I'd say, and always, you know, I want to make sure we're just aware of all possible needs, et cetera. So it is definitely my understanding that based on this, besides Parks and Rec, no other department has any urgent needs, and so that's which clearly I think we see within here in the document. And I'd say too, you know, just an ongoing concern I have is that you know, I mean, it's great. There always seems to be some extra money, which is a good thing. But, you know, I really do feel, Mayor and Council, we have to, there are situations where we have to make tough decisions and all that. So it sounds like we don't have to tonight. It sounds like there is the money available for both, which is great. But again, it's just knowing that there's so many different needs within the city. I think we do have to have some more thoughtful discussions through the budget process, because again, I still stand by that. I really feel this city should be going through a zero-based budget process, even if it was just done for, you know, a different department each year or something along those lines, to really make sure we're being as fiscally responsible as we can. But again, back to the matter at hand, and I support this program and want to assist, and glad we were supportive of moving it from committee to tonight.
Additional comments from council. Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. So, as I commented on the committee meeting, I would like to understand why on this partnership taxpayers have to pay 60% of the project, or $58,000 out of $96,000. So, so why not consider 50-50 as a fair partnership for this project?
Thank you. Mr. Fisher offered to answer for me. Councilmember Zapata, I understand your concern. The Art Around project was initiated now 7 years ago at the request of city to be implemented by Roswell Arts Fund. It was not initiated as a 50-50 partnership. Currently, we do perform all of the project activities and activations. That includes everything from the social media, both the temporary and the permanent art, tours, website, photography, sort of the list goes on. So we are trying to go above and beyond in terms of that partnership. From this year going forward, I think we absolutely would love to reevaluate what the scope of the project is, what it can become, what it needs to be to suit your goals as council and mayor. But for this particular year, we are trying to kind of get things back to where they were before the madness, reestablish the tradition, the groundwork, so we can kind of grow that tradition and make it greater for the years to come. So we are staying with the $58,000 for this year, and as that ask is remaining firm.
Additional comments, questions from council? Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Yes, ma'am, please come forward. You can have a seat, sir.
Janet Russell, Roswell resident. Ms. Wilsey just commented that we were going to take the money from the hotel motel sales tax, the excess, from 2020, 21. I would like to know how much is that excess, because we've been hearing for the last year that the hotels and the motels are empty for lack of tourists. And I know that state law requires that the first 10% of collected revenues go to trails. The rest has to go to our Office of Tourism. Well, as we know, our Office of Tourism closed last April and is permanently removed from the town square. We have no visible office of welcome or tourism in Roswell, which I personally, as a tourism professional of 40 years, find appalling, that a city that likes to welcome people to visit our city has no visible presence anymore. But I'd like to know how much money we collected from these empty hotel rooms last year. And I know that you can return any unused funds to the general fund and then redistribute it, which is how Roswell Inc. got money for several years when you wanted to pad their budget. you took money from Visit Roswell and put it in the general fund and then gave it to Roswell, Inc. I'm concerned because I need to know why these hotels were empty but still generating income. Because all we've heard is they're broke and they have no money and we have no visitors. But we do have visitors, they're just not spending the night. I meet them every single day and invite them to our town. I've been doing the work of the visitor center for 18 months with my little shopping bag of brochures and information, again, for free. Because I understand that tourism is the single largest creator of income in the world as an industry. So I want to know from Mr. Luckett, if he has the numbers handy, he's fantastic. What did we actually collect? And how much did we give to the trail system? Because that is required by state law. We don't have a choice. And why, or of the several $100,000 we are giving the Visit Roswell office next year, why is there any excess? Because all we hear is, oh, poor us. And I can tell you it's been a challenging 18 or 20 months so far in the tourism business. So I'd like those answers. I'm not against the arts at all. Like everybody knows I love the arts. But the point is, fiscal responsibility needs to be transparent, and most people don't understand that. For years, people didn't know, and I had to bring it up at a work session when Roswell Inc. gave a presentation, that when you make a booking online with Hotels.com or something, the city that hotel was in did not get to collect the sales tax. It went to the state until 2 states finally sued, and they got it so that you could then book online and the hotel would get that sales tax. At that time, I asked for the city to contact the hotels in our city and ask them for a copy of their records for the last 8 previous or 10 years, because we had received 0 revenue from those hotels, even though they were collecting taxes that we were entitled to. Again, nobody listened to me because it's just Janet, and what does she know? She's a pain. No, Janet's really smart, and Janet understands your dollars, and I understand tourism dollars. That's why I was the only American representative of the United Nations World Tourism Conference in Burkina Faso, where the topic of conversation for the day was creating sustainable tourism as a means of eradicating poverty in developing countries. And we are a developing city once again, and we need to know where the money is coming from and why it is being diverted and where is it going to go. So I'd like to know the total amount, please, and not later in a week in a secret email.
Thank you. Mr. Luckett, I don't know that are you prepared to answer those questions about the funding this evening, the dollar amounts? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. As we went through the FY21 budget process, we were right in the middle of the beginning of the COVID pandemic. We were pretty conservative in what we anticipated coming in. As the year wound down, our fiscal year, we did end up collecting more than we anticipated. And we did not anticipate using as much in our general fund transfer from the hotel motel fund to the general fund. Just to clarify, the funds that we take in from hotel motel tax, 43.75% of that must go to the CVB, and 37.5% is unrestricted, and these funds are coming from the unrestricted portion. The remaining 18.75% must be used for what they call tourism product development, which are essentially capital projects that support tourism. So the funding is coming from unrestricted hotel motel tax fund balance, and we collected more than we anticipated. We didn't spend as much as we planned, and that's why we have the available funding that we have.
Thank you, Mr. Luckett. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak? Seeing no hands up, I'll bring it back to council. Additional comments, questions from council? Do I have a motion?
Yes, and thank you, Mayor. Motion to approve budget amendment in the amount of $58,000 for the Roswell Arts Fund's FY 2022 Art Around Roswell program, and also a budget amendment in the amount of $50,000 for the gymnastics floor replacement from the general fund.
We've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Tyser? Was that, or Councilmember Judy?
Yes. Either. Just put Matt.
All those in favor, please raise your hands. Yes, Councilmember Zapata, do you have a clarifying question?
Yes, please, thanks. So, so the question is, why are we bundling two different items or three different items into one item? The gymnastic floor replacement, the physical activity center roof replacement with the Art Around Roswell program?
Councilmember Zapata, I did not have a problem with it because it was a part of the same funding request. The item of approval of budget amendment 100617556-101221. And it is spelled out in the item summary that the gymnastics floor replacement was in concert with that, so I did not have a problem with Councilmember Wilsey's motion. So we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your hands, and it passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is community development. Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 4, approval of RZ 2021-2609, CV 2021-2611, 845 Cox Road rezone, Civic to RS30, single-family estate, and a variance to the front setback, presented by Mr. Cardamon.
Give us a minute. The computer had to restart for some reason.
Good evening. The request is rezoned from Civic to RS30, along with a concurrent variance to reduce the front setback from 50 feet to 30 feet. The applicant submitted on June 6th. The neighborhood meeting was July 8th. Planning Commission was September 21st, and Mayor and Council is tonight, October 12th. Here is an aerial of the property. Here is the zoning map. RS30 to the west, which is the Litchfield 100 subdivision, RS30 to the east, which is the Old Surrey Place subdivision, RS18 to the south, which is the Brookfield West subdivision, along with a 2.5 acre RS30 lot. AG 43 zoning is to the north. Here is the future land use map. The property is estate residential. Here's a site plan. The total site is 31.9 acres. 24 lots are proposed. Here's some more site details. There are 2 streams on the subject property, 1 stream on the northeast side of the property, and a 2nd stream on the northwest side of the property. There's also a 30-foot access easement behind lots 22, 23, 24 that impact the rear setback of these lots. This complies with both the 2035 and 2040 comprehensive plan. Here is a zoomed-in version of the site. Here are the stream buffers, as you can see, on the northeast and the northwest side of the property. Here's the south of the property, and you can see the access easement that pushes up the lots 22, 23, and 24. The Planning Commission recommendation is approval that the owner-developer should develop the property in substantial accordance with the site plan dated July 28, 2021. The number of lots are not guaranteed, as reduction may be required due to staff comments during the development process. Staff recommendation. Staff recommends approval of the rezoning and variance to the front setback with the following condition. The owner-developer shall develop the property in substantial accordance with the site plan dated July 28, 2021. The number of lots are not guaranteed, as reduction may be required due to staff comments during the development process. All lots must be a minimum of 1 acre. Any questions?
Does council have any questions for staff? Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. My question has to do with the fire station, the property in the corner. If you can address that for us, please.
So after the question we had at the legal meeting, I spent some time with the city attorney, and we do have a deed for that property that allows us the access and everything. I'm going to let the city attorney address that part.
So I told Jackie, I actually saw this deed about 4 years ago. I can't put my hands on it right now, but I know we have it somewhere. But yeah, so I think so we do own the property. I think that was one of the questions. We do own the property. I just have to get my hands on the deed in order to clarify it.
Thank you.
Additional questions from council? Would the applicant like to come forward and speak?
Mayor Henry, members of the council, I'm Don Rollator. My address is 200 Foothills Parkway, Marble Hill, Georgia, 30148. I'm here tonight on behalf of Brightwater Homes. Joel Ferguson with Brightwater Homes is here with me tonight. Staff has outlined it for you. It's a simple request to rezone 31.9 acres, which was the old school board site, for the development of single-family homes of lots owned over an acre each. There's a variance request to reduce the front setback from 50 feet to 30 feet, which the staff fully supports. We have tremendous topography in that property. Some lots drop 50 feet from the street, where the new street will be, to the back. There are big stream buffers in there, 75-foot buffers, and there are 2 streams and 2 ponds. The real benefit to this variance is it pulls the development of the property internally into it, with all the homes being 30 feet from the streets rather than 50 feet, and has less impact on the neighbors on both sides. She's described, or Michael has described adequately the properties that surround it and their zoning. Our intent is to build 24 new homes. We've discussed the variance. Staff recommends approval and finds that the development is in compliance with the comprehensive plan, being estate residential, and single-family estate plan. Properties on both sides are zoned R30. Across at Brookfield, there's R30, and there's also R18. The 2 abutting subdivisions also fit the comp plan. Planning Commission recommended approval of the application and the variance. We accept the 2 staff conditions that are proposed. We have no issue with either one. We're happy to answer any questions you have at this time. Otherwise, we'll reserve time for rebuttal if there's public comment. And as one closing comment, we would tell you that there is a serious demand for quality housing in the city of Alpharetta. And this application is one of those applications that will help meet that demand. People want to live here, and they want to live in fine housing. So if you have questions, please let us know.
Mr. Rollator, thank you, and I'm sure you meant to say housing needs in the city of Roswell?
Yes.
Not Alpharetta?
No. I work both places, and sometimes I get confused. After I hit my 70th birthday, I use that as an excuse. So forgive me for my error.
Thank you. Does council have any questions for the applicant? Yes, Councilmember Palermo.
Just one clarifying question. You mentioned that the applicant is good with 2 the 2 staff added conditions, but I believe there were 3. Was that right, or was it just 2? I'm just trying to think back to the PowerPoint.
That's fine.
Okay. And so,
The last one was added by the planning commission.
oh, okay, touche. But so you're good with these 3?
We're good with the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you, Mayor. So, we have several examples in Roswell, projects that they get approved, either the zoning or conditional, and they either never get started, or they get started and they never get finished, which is a big issue in Roswell. So my question is, do you have a time to start the project and finish the project? This project is going to be built in one phase or several phases, so the people of Roswell have an expectation about this project?
I will answer part of that, and I will ask Joel to answer the rest of it. I will tell you that as soon as this project is approved, which we hope is tonight, we will commence the application process for land disturbance. We're ready to go. The market is here, and it's today. We're dying to get started. We have to close on the property with the school board. We don't perceive that as an issue. Are you going to do it in one phase or multiple phases? It will be a single-phase development. We will grade it and build 24 lots in one step.
And expecting finishing time?
24 months right now is about average. It will take 6 months to begin grading. It'll be February or March when land clearing starts.
Thank you.
I'd like to weigh in on that 1 second, please. This next step, if this is approved, is a preliminary plat, not a land disturbance permit. So that is the next step. They have to get that approved before they can get the land disturbance permit.
Thank you. Additional questions, comments from council?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rollator. We'll reserve time for rebuttal. Is there anybody in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Yes, sir, please come forward.
My name is Jason Yowell. I love the idea of reducing front yard setbacks from 50 feet to 30 feet. I think 50-foot setbacks are archaic and they are environmentally destructive. I'd like to see more of front yard setbacks being reduced in future developments. So, good job. Thank you.
Additional comments from the public? Mr. Rollator, you good? Additional comments from council? Do I have a motion?
Yes, Mayor. Motion to approve item number 4, approval of RZ 2021-2609, CV 2021-2611, with the staff recommendations.
Motion by Councilmember Hall. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Tizer. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. Thank you. Back to you, Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. Item number 5, RZ 2021-3070, Old Chadwick Lane, request to rezone property from NX Neighborhood Mixed Use to AG 43 Agricultural. And Mr. Turner will present. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This rezoning was first submitted in July. The neighborhood meeting was held in August. Planning Commission was last month. Here's an aerial of the property. It fronts Old Chadwick Lane to the south and also has quite a bit of frontage on Arnold Mill Road. Property is currently zoned NX, as is the piece just to the north of it. The properties to the west and a little bit to the south there is agricultural. The white that you see to the other part of the south and then across Arnold Mill is the city of Milton. The property is in the state residential character area of the 2035 comprehensive plan. Here's a kind of a broadened out. So this is a phase of the Grand Reserve. So you can see part of the development to the south and over towards the west where we'll connect through some existing agricultural and then into the property that's in question tonight. It's a little over 21 acres. There are 15 total lots, including and additionally one stormwater lot. Four of the lots are partly in the subject property and partly in the property, the neighboring property that is AG. It does comply with the 2035 comprehensive plan. It does not comply with the proposed 2040 comprehensive plan, which has this particular 3 parcels as a neighborhood serving area. Here's a zoomed in on the property we're talking about compared with the zoning where it's NX here and then it transitions into the agricultural. At the top is a cul-de-sac, but there will be an emergency access that will connect to Arnold Mill. There's another view of the property there along Old Chadwick. Planning Commission recommend approval with substantial accordance to the site plan. That is also staff's recommendation. Any question for staff?
Council have any questions? Yes, Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Kevin, for the presentation. Regarding the neighborhood serving area, could you show that map again? I was just curious what properties are remaining with that designation.
Sure. So it would be, if you look, that's probably going to be the best one. That's that top piece that's not, so there's the 4 annex pieces, the 3 pieces we're talking about. The one to the north would be the last one that would be left.
Would be remaining. And the intention is that that would be like neighborhood serving businesses like?
Right. So looking at that on our updated plan, they're already zoned in X. So to do an estate residential there going forward wouldn't quite make sense. So we propose that to be the neighborhood serving since it's already a commercially zoned. However, under the current plan, that is the estate, which the agricultural means.
And with this request, that makes it something to consider.
It is.
Absolutely. And you're recommending approval?
We are.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Additional questions from council? Yes, Councilmember Hall.
Can you just speak to the request for AG 43 versus RS 30 or estate?
Sure. So one thing is going back to the map, the area around it is AG. Also, there's no sewer, they're septic, so they're going to be required to be 1 acre anyway, so that's more consistent with the AG 43.
Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you. So on these will be homes built in 1 acre, you said, or?
Yeah. A few of them are over. There's
so nothing would be planted like corn or anything agriculture?
No, it'd be single-family homes. They could plant corn if they like.
So what is the agricultural component here that I don't get, beside maybe having to pay probably less property tax being agriculture than residential?
It would give them some options, potentially, if they wanted to use it as a farm, but they're proposing single-family homes.
So, you know, and why not to go for single-family homes zoning here and agriculture without corn in there and with probably significant tax breaks for agriculture zoning? So I don't know if you can explain a little bit more on that.
I'll expand on that. So when the agricultural zoning was created, due to the fact that we annexed property in from Fulton County, and they had an agricultural zoning when we did that. And when we annexed all these properties, most of them up there were zoned agricultural by Fulton County originally. So as time progressed, there are a few farms that are still up there at the Lackey Farm and everything else. However, the rest of the property has been developed over the years as agricultural due to the fact that Fulton County had the sewer moratorium that was placed on it in 2001. And so everyone who wanted to develop single-family homes did so at the 1 acre or more lot size based on the fact that they had to develop septic. So as time progressed, the AG just stayed as is, and the developers who are currently doing the phase 4 here have developed 2 phases of Grand Reserve. This Grand Reserve subdivision. The 3rd phase is in the office currently for their land disturbance permit, and this would be phase 4 to finish out the development.
Additional, yes, Councilmember Judy.
I believe just because it's zoned something is not taxed based upon the zoning. It's taxed upon the use. Is that correct, Mr. Davidson?
That would be correct.
So if they build houses, they're taxed as houses. There's no tax break because it's zone agriculture, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Additional questions from council? We'd like to hear from the applicant.
Thank you again, Mayor, members of council. I'm Don Rollator. My address is 200 Foothills Parkway, Marble Hill, Georgia, 30148. And tonight I'm in the city of Roswell, Georgia. Mayor, if you'll remind me if I missed that. I appreciate it. Again, staff has described it adequately. It's 21.25 acres, and it adds on to the existing Grand Reserve subdivision. The gap between this property and the existing Grand Reserve is under contract. There's no need to rezone it. It's already zoned AG 43, and it will be acquired at the same time this property is acquired and developed as part of the subdivision. So the reason for the gap in there, it's under contract, they're going to buy it, and that's why it's there. Simple explanation. There's a quick explanation I think you will enjoy about the property being zoned NX. I lived out there off Cox Road for 13 years, and you go up the road toward Canton, and on the left was Chadwick's store, and there was a barbecue restaurant with an old airplane stuck into the roof of it to make you think it had been a plane crash. And now there's a Army-Navy store there. There was a little node of commercial activity in Fulton County, and Fulton County recognized it, and therefore they zoned it C2, commercial. Now, benefit from that, minimal, because if there's no sewer, you can't make it work financially. You have no sewer, you'd have to have a septic tank system the size of Texas to make it work. But that's why it was zoned that way. And when the city annexed the property, it's the uniform process that they followed with every annexation they made. So it wound up being NX, which, you could put a store there. Well, you could, but I don't think you would, even if you had an airplane crashed on the roof. So that's where NX came from. We have asked for AG 43 because the remaining property in there is AG 43. Our subdivision that's already occupied in part and under construction in part is AG 43. It's just the selection in that area that fits the staff's plan for the future. That's why we've asked for it. We'll build 16 new homes on this property. Staff recommends approval. We accept their condition. Planning Commission recommended approval. Mr. Zapata, I asked the developer, because of the terms of the contract with the family that owned it, this property will be acquired next April. At the same time, the property behind it will be acquired, and development activity will start immediately after that. They hope to be grading by July or August, but that is the acquisition schedule. It is also planned as a one-end development. They will grade this entire tract and build those 16 lots and the ones next to them in one effort. So if you have any questions of me or the applicant, we're happy to answer them. Otherwise, Mayor, we would reserve time for rebuttal and ask your kind consideration of this application.
Thank you, Mr. Rollator. Does council have any questions? Yes, Councilmember Palermo.
So thank you for sharing that background as well as the plan, and from what I was looking at, it seems like the plan, to your point, seems to align pretty well with what's already there, I guess. And so with that, I think I was looking in my UDC, now I'm looking online and can't find it. Jackie, I believe when AG 43 does have cell phone towers as a permitted use, is that right? That is, okay. So basically, you've outlined here a plan that just shows houses, doesn't show a cell phone tower or anything like that. But would you have any concerns with a condition being added that a cell phone tower would not be able to be added here without coming to council for permission?
Yes, a cell phone tower is considered a limited use in AG 43. So if you want to make that a condition, you may do so.
And the applicant's okay with that being a condition?
Problem with that?
Excellent, thank you.
Additional comments, questions from council? Thank you, Mr. Rollator. Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Yes, sir, please come forward.
Jason Yowell. There's a lot of talk about the ratio in our tax base being overly skewed to residential. And Mr. Rollator makes an interesting point about the lack of sewer inhibiting commercial development, but it doesn't preclude it. And I think you're missing an opportunity to wait it out. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this area. Directly across the street is the dump. These are probably going to be $1 million homes. Wow. Eventually, I guess the dump will be a park, but there's some interesting economics going on here. I think, given how isolated this area is, don't give up the NX. You have to drive quite a ways to get to any kind of service area. Alpharetta is very successful in saying our commercial properties are commercial properties and we aren't going to settle for what people want to do because that's all anybody wants to do at this moment in time. We will wait and eventually we will get a better use, a higher and better use that contributes more to the tax base. This, I don't see a rationale to do it. I just don't. I think it's a big mistake to lose NX zoning in an area that is so underserved for small-scale commercial use. Wouldn't do it. You shouldn't either.
Forward and speak. Mr. Rollator?
Just a point of information for your benefit. The dump was an inert landfill created some 20-something years ago. That means it takes construction materials. It does not take wet garbage. It had a burn permit. It burned part of it. That dump has since been closed. It's full. It's complete. And there are negotiations underway for the city of Milton to acquire it as a park. So that's my explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rollator. Additional comments, questions? Councilmember Zapata?
So, yeah, we do have a deficit on commercial tax in the city. So what is staff, the specialists, have to say about the possibility and probability that this could be developed commercial in the future? We have experienced staff that might be able to let us know about what they see, the potential in the future to be developed as commercial.
The properties have been zoned commercial since we annexed them in, or actually prior to that. They were zoned in Fulton County as commercial uses. As stated, there was a military depot up there, couple other uses with cars and other different uses up there over the years. Over the last few years, some things have gone and left that area. Whether something will come up here or not, we can't say at the moment. We haven't really had anybody ever come and talk to us about these properties. These properties were annexed in the mid-2000s, so they've been in the city for at least 15 years. And they have basically stayed the way they are for the last 15 plus years. So whether something comes in the future, I can't technically say yes or no tonight, whether we'll get a commercial use that might come knocking on our door next week or another 5 years from now. So I think that's about the best I can answer.
Yes, Councilmember Zapata.
Great. I was just expecting more the angle from the needs of the existing residents in the area. Is there any needs for them to have some sort of commercial to have a less travel time or not? I mean, have you ever, heard about from the existing residents that a commercial here will benefit them or not really because there's not need for commercial for the existing residents in there. So, and then if someone come and knock at the door is one thing, but if the residents want something commercial there, we need to be more proactive and not reactive, waiting for someone to knock on the door. So the key here is to understand if the residents of the area are in need of a commercial destination place for them or not. That is pretty much.
So as Kevin did state in the 2040 comprehensive plan, based on the fact that it was zoned NX, the committee did indicate it to be a neighborhood serving area. However, at this point in time, that is not official as of yet. The 2035 comprehensive plan, which this item was filed under, does comply with the estate residential, which is what this area is shown up there. Regarding uses for the neighbors in that area, could there be some things that could come up there? Yes. Maybe somebody would have different types of uses that they could drive to that would be closer. The properties most likely would not service a grocery store. Not sure if it's large enough for something like that. You might find smaller retail type of uses, more like dry cleaners, different types of small retail stores, something in that regard. But you also have to remember that they would have to develop with stormwater and meet all the requirements related to that. So it's hard to really say yes or no whether or not the neighbors would be also using those facilities. So.
We've got an opportunity here. Mr. Davidson lives in this area, so he's very familiar with it, and I'm sure has shopping habits. Just as a personal opinion, could you just give us an idea what's in the area and where you go to shop?
So from this location, if you go 5 minutes north, there's basically a closed shopping center. I think there's a Dollar Tree in there, a Dollar General. South, about 5 minutes from there, there's the Kroger at the silos. So there's not really, from my opinion, just personal opinion, it's not really a need for a strip commercial center there. All the stuff is right there anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you. So I'd say there are certainly parts of the city where I've heard from residents that they absolutely really want commercial activity and destinations and just a place for commerce. For example, in a number of parts of Holcomb Bridge Road, et cetera. I'd say this is not an area where I've specifically heard that, and perhaps that anecdote is the reason. So I think someone had mentioned that it's been on sale as commercial for 10, 15 years. That's not a factor for me because I have no idea what price they were charging or anything like that. The factor that I'm going to look at is does the request seem appropriate and fit in with the character of the area and not have negative adverse impacts to the existing properties, et cetera, in the area. And from what I've seen, it seems like low intensity. It is changed for a commercial. Again, I absolutely do want to get more destinations in Roswell and some great commercial activity. But I haven't seen or heard specifically a burning request there. Whereas I've seen more of the request to make sure different developments that would come in this area are fitting in with the character.
Additional comments, questions from council? Did I call for public comment? Okay. Mr. Rollator, did you, or anything else you need to add? Thank you so much. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I have a clarifying question for my motion.
Yes.
For the cell tower, were we discussing not permitted or conditional?
We were going to specify that cell towers were not going to be allowed as a use.
Thank you.
Not permitted.
I'm prepared to make my motion, and that motion is to approve item number 5, RZ 2021-3070, with the staff recommended conditions and the additional condition that cell towers are not permitted.
We've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Tizer. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. Thank you. Back to you, Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 6, approval of a text amendment to the Unified Development Code, UDC, to Article 4, Corridor Nodes District, Section 4.3, Building Type Standards, and this is the second reading, presented by Ms. Deibel.
Mr. Davidson.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Code by modifying Article 4, Corridor and Nodes District, Section 4.3, Building Type Standards. Now therefore, the Mayor and Council of the City of Roswell, Georgia, pursuant to their authority, do hereby amend Article 4, Corridor and Nodes District, Section 4.3, Building Type Standards of the Unified Development Code, the text of which is incorporated herein by reference. And if approved, this is the second reading.
Ms. Deibel.
Good evening. So as stated, this is the second reading for UDC text amendment, section 4.3, the building type standards. This is going through to remove the restriction that was placed on this section 2 years ago that required a minimum of 2 building types within the NX zoning classification and the CX zoning classification. So that all this is the removal of that restriction. Do you have any questions for staff? Staff recommends approval of the second reading.
Council have any questions? Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you. I have a comment. I know this item and all the next items we've covered together probably at least 4 times publicly, but I do think it is important to share for the public listening that, again, this is removing a restriction, and it was a restriction that came about because a number of years ago I brought forward just wanting to make sure that commercial mixed use was not going to be 100% residential without the community getting to weigh in and council having getting to weigh in, and there was not support at the time for doing that, and then so basically a compromise that came about was this two building types. So that was a compromise that everyone in this council, I believe, supported, except for maybe Councilmember Hall. Definitely not Councilmember Hall because she was not here. Maybe not Councilman Zapata, but it was a compromise that I think made things better for a time, and then I feel it was improved even more last year, making it so that this is not necessary. In which case, since it's no longer necessary, let's go ahead and remove it. So I'm hoping, just like the previous times we've discussed this this year, that it will be unanimous tonight.
Additional comments, questions from council? Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Yes, please come forward.
I personally like this because when you have an NX zoning on a parcel that's too small to accommodate 2 different building types, it's just sensible. Thank you.
Additional comments from the public? Do I have a motion?
Yes, Mayor. Motion to approve item number 6.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Hall. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Judy. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. Thank you.
Item number 7, approval of approval of a text amendment to the Unified Development Code, UDC, Section 4.5, allowed uses. This is the second reading, presented by Ms. Deibel.
Mr. Davidson.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Code by modifying Article 4, Corridor and Nodes District, Section 4.5, allowed uses. Now therefore, the mayor and council of the city of Roswell, Georgia, pursuant to their authority, do hereby amend Article 4, Corridor and Node Districts, Section 4.5, allowed uses of the Unified Development Code, text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this would be the second reading.
So as stated, this is the second reading for section 4.5, allowed uses, section 4.5.2 use table, to be amended by changing the P, which is permitted, to a C for conditional in the CC, commercial corridor zoning classification for the townhouse use. So that would mean that townhomes would be a conditional use in the CC zoning classification. Staff recommends approval of the text amendment.
Council have any questions, comments? Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. I have a couple comments on this one. So first of all, this is actually related to the rezoning that we granted tonight. As I mentioned, in that location, that's not an area that I'd heard a lot of residents coming and saying that they want to see a lot more commercial activity there. But when we look at the east side of Roswell, there's a lot of or there's multiple CC zonings, commercial corridor zonings, and that is certainly some areas where I have heard a lot of interest for destinations and commercial activity, et cetera, and that residents would not want to see it turning into majority residential on some of those properties. And so I definitely applaud Councilmember Hall for bringing this forward, because without this update, there's a number of properties that could turn into 100% townhomes. And that's something where, again, this is not outlawing townhomes or anything like that. What it's just doing is it's creating the need for a public process. It gives the opportunity for residents to weigh in and for council to weigh in. So of course I support this and definitely just again appreciate this. And there's one more thing I want to bring up. This has to do with that. I brought up that other zoning, but separately this has to do with our discussion at committee. So again, there's a lot of residents that want to see, commercial activity and not wanting to just see everything turning into 100% residential. And so that's why it was so crucial that we updated that RFP to make sure that really the intent and the protections that are being added, and I definitely see this as one of them. So that's why I want to make sure that's clear to the public as well as clear to any consultant that would be responding to our RFP.
Additional comments from council? Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Yes, sir.
Jason Yowell, I think this is a good idea. We've had too many opportunities for commercial development lost to, as of right, townhouses coming in, and at least now you get to weigh in and have a choice. Thank you.
Additional comments from the public? Do I have a motion?
Yes, Mayor. Motion to approve item number 7.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Hall. Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, wow, we've got lots of seconds there. I could hear Councilmember Wilsey and Councilmember Zapata. I think somebody else chimed in there too.
I'll withdraw my second.
All those in favor, please raise your hands, and it passes unanimously.
Item number 8, approval of a text amendment to Article 13 of the Unified Development Code, UDC, regarding historic preservation. This is the second reading, presented by Ms. Deibel.
Mr. Davidson.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Code by modifying Article 13, Section 13.2.4, Historic Preservation Commission, Section 13.7.2, when is historic review required, Section 13.7.12, what approval criteria are required, and Section 13.7.15, what if a certificate is denied. Now therefore, the mayor and council of the city of Roswell, Georgia, pursuant to their authority, do hereby amend Article 13, Section 13.2.4, Section 13.7.2, Section 13.7.12, and Section 13.7.15 of the Unified Development Code, the text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this is the second reading.
So as stated, this is second reading for a text amendment related to historic preservation. The state asked us to make updates and changes to our code in order to more align with what's required. We do it already, but they wanted to see it in the ordinance. So what we've done here is indicate that where the Historic Preservation Commission is established in Article 2.6. So here, this section is related to the ordinary maintenance and repair. This is related to the fact that the HPC does not consider anything that's done on the inside of a property or inside of a house. This section relates to the denial by the Historic Preservation Commission and the fact that a letter is sent to them related to the denial, and if they are denied, that they can appeal to the mayor and council. And that is the text amendment. The staff does recommend approval of the second reading of this text amendment.
Thank you. Does council have any questions? Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Do I have a motion?
Yes, Mayor, motion to approve item number 8.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Hall. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Tizer. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously.
Item number 9, approval of a text amendment to Article 13, Section 13.3.3 of the Unified Development Code, UDC, on construction phasing for a mixed-use development. This is the second reading presented by Ms. Deibel.
Mr. Davidson.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Code by modifying Article 13, Section 13.3.3, application requirements. Now therefore, the mayor and council of the city of Roswell, Georgia, pursuant to their authority, do hereby amend Article 13, Section 13.3.3, application requirements of the Unified Development Code, the text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this would be the second reading.
This is a second reading for a UDC text amendment to Section 13.3.3 related to mixed-use development construction phasing. As I stated at the first reading last month, this has been discussed at length over the last few months. The Planning Commission was tasked to look at this. The item after this is the policy that's related to this. At the first reading, you asked us to add the words by resolution, which has been added in the text amendment. So this is for any mixed-use project that will be proposed and built out for the NX, CX, SH, CC, CH, PV, and the DX zoning classifications. So when any of those come in, they are required to provide a master plan to the city, and then also comply with the construction phasing policy, which will be heard next. So this text amendment is the second reading for this, and staff does recommend approval.
Council have any questions? Yes, Councilmember Judy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to thank Planning Commission and staff for working hard on getting us to this point. This is obviously something that has been brought up, and we tasked them with really guiding us through the process, doing a lot of research, and along with us, I believe we've come up with something that we can pass this evening, and it's going to be beneficial to the city of Roswell. And so I just wanted to say thank you for all the hard work that's been done on this.
Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Henry, and absolutely. So as I look back, it's literally a year ago that I had brought this forward, and really just the importance of having assurances built in for when a developer requests something, they promise something, it's what we'll get, and it's just so important because, again, a great example is with Sun Valley at Highway 9. With this, that would not be possible again for a developer to build just the residential without the commercial and the walkable aspects that they're offering as well. So I think this is a big, important update. And obviously it goes together number 9 and 10. So 9 and 10, you obviously without them together, then it doesn't do anything. But together, I think it's the most important part of tonight. And I of course would have preferred something a little stricter, but nonetheless, I think Planning Commission and staff, with staff's help, I think they did a great job. I think they really worked together and came up with something that works well with both 9 and 10. So again, kudos to Planning Commission, and definitely excited to see this be official tonight. And again, another example why it's so important we're clear in that RFP that this is an important protection for residents, and we wouldn't want them residents thinking that we're taking away the protections and the improvements that we've added. So could not be happier about this after a year, and really hoping both 9 and 10 can pass as written and unanimously.
Additional comments from council? Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Yes, sir, please come forward.
The intent is good, but the wording is weak. It's really wishy-washy. The purpose of such phasing shall be to provide assurance. Wow, that's a huge loophole that a good attorney would just dive right through. What do they do in Alpharetta for this? Does anybody know? Because I take a real hard look at what they've done to make sure that these things happen. The intent is good, but to provide assurance. Okay, I'm going to give you assurance. But what if the assurance that you get isn't, the result isn't commensurate with the assurance that you received? Are there any penalties? Are there any consequences? Doesn't appear to be. It's so loose. What are they doing in Alpharetta? They're hitting it right. Why reinvent the wheel? You're going to end up getting screwed with this. Thank you.
Additional comments from the public? Thank you. Clarifying question, Councilmember Zapata?
No, comment. Yeah. So, yeah, good point, because this, like Councilmember Palermo started a year ago. That is something very simple, and took a year. And this year, my perception, I believe that was an initiative from Councilmember Palermo and was much stronger. So what it took was really, my perception is, took a year to water down the text here of this text amendment. So this is what really it took, a year to water it down to where we are right now, a point that, nobody can oppose to this, but yeah, I agree, it had been watered down. Was much more straightforward at the beginning, a year ago. So this is what happened during the last year. So this is my perception, and I do agree that should be more straightforward because it's going to be more clear for developer as well. So, but this is what we have today, a year after these have been introduced.
Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And actually, I have 2 points to make. And the first, I think, goes back to a discussion that we had probably on the first reading or an initiation, that the language that is in the UDC is actually referring to the policy standards. So the policy standards that we have set are what the developer is required to follow. And so that is where the stringency and the penalties come in, and I believe that they are there in the policy. What this is in the UDC is simply referring to the policies, and that policy can be changed much easier than the text amendment. So that's why you see the different language. And second point is, it's my understanding that Alpharetta looks at every mixed-use project in a project-by-project basis, and they set the phasing requirements by project. They don't have a blanket requirement, so actually what we have right now is much stronger than what Alpharetta has. So I think that's an excellent step for us, and very happy to see this go into effect and move forward.
Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you. So, you know, although yes, it is true for the version I brought forward last year that ultimately was voted down twice. It was stronger than this. It was stricter than this. But nonetheless, that should not take away from the fact that this is significant, and this does make a real improvement with teeth, and it's something even though it's not obviously my ideal, I brought forward last year and failed. This is something I still proudly support and proudly stand by will improve things. And I'd argue I'd argue that Alpharetta on a project-by-project basis typically does make it even stricter than this. However, the fact that we have a blanket is a good protection, and with this, mayor and council would have the authority to make it stricter when they find that to be the case. And it goes back to what I mentioned. It's crucial that it's number 9 and number 10, because to Councilmember Wills's point, if it was just number 9 passing, then yes, there's nothing, and it does nothing. But by the fact that it's basically it's saying right here the construction phasing policy adopted by the resolution, it would then look to this resolution on number 10, and number 10 does have real rules that will be impactful. So even if it, again, as I mentioned from the beginning, even if it's not my 100% ideal, I can still proudly say this is a great improvement, and still making it so that the Sun Valley and Highway 9 situation could not happen again, because a developer would have had to have built out and actually done the non-residential, which we'll see when we get into number 10.
Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. And this may be a question for Mr. Davidson. It's a procedural question, since we've already, we're broaching that this is piggybacks with item number 10, the resolution, and the reason they are separate items is because they came at separate times. Could we make a motion to bundle these together today?
So this is a resolution, and this is the ordinance, so it needs to be in place before you adopt the resolution to go with the ordinance.
Okay, so
The resolution can be changed, if you decide that the phasing that is in the resolution at a later date, you don't think it's stringent enough, you can change the resolution in one reading. You don't have to go through all the requirements of changing an ordinance.
okay, so
why it's done like
that's
this.
why it's done. Thank you.
Do I have a motion?
Yes, Mayor. Motion to approve item number 9.
Motion by Councilmember Hall. Do I have a second? Second by Councilmember Palermo. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously.
Item number 10, approval of a resolution establishing policy standards for mixed-use development, construction phasing, presented by Ms. Deibel.
So as stated, this is the policy that will set the standards related to the text that was just adopted to be placed into the code. And these policy standards were discussed by the Planning Commission, and then have been discussed through committee with the mayor and council. So I'll go through those. So this ties here under the section right there. We've placed it where it ties it to section 13.3.3 within the UDC. So that gives that straight there. The intent is to have any construction as stated within the zoning classifications to be sequenced in accordance with the project build-out schedule submitted for review as part of the initial applications and approved by staff. So when someone brings a mixed-use development project in the zoning classifications, they will be required to bring the build-out schedule at that time. And then at that time, when it goes through the process for mayor and council, they will have this information ahead of schedule and everything. So the policy, once it's adopted, the applicants will know that this will be required. So step one, building permits for up to 20% of residential square footage as shown on the master plan may be issued prior to the commencing, I'm sorry, this got a little disjointed here, of any non-residential construction. Step two of the policy, building permits for 21 to 50% of the residential square footage as shown on the master plan may only be issued after issuance of the building permits for at least 25% of non-residential square footage as shown on the master plan and commencement of said non-residential construction. Number three, building permits for 51 to 79% of the residential square footage as shown on the master plan may only be issued after the issuance of COs for at least 25%, certificate of occupancy, in case anybody didn't know what a CO was, for at least 25% of the non-residential square footage as shown on the plan. And then building permits for the last 20% of the residential square footage as shown on the plan may only be issued after the issuance of the certificate of occupancy for at least 80% of the non-residential square footage as shown on the master plan. And number five, any of the above mentioned requirements may be adjusted or waived by the mayor and council at a public hearing as long as the applicant provides security or other form of binding assurance that remaining major use types shown in the master plan will be built. So as stated, this master plan that is discussed in the statements is required at the time of submittal. So the master plan will be the project, the plan, the site plan that will come through the process for an approval by the mayor and council, which will then set up this statement related to the policy, and all those factors will be in play. And if the mayor and council so choose to do so when it's at the public hearing, they may waive or change one of those standards. If not, they will stay as is. And as City Attorney David Davidson just stated, a policy can be changed in one reading compared to a text amendment, and that means if you feel that these are not strict enough, you may change them at any point in time. Do you have any questions for staff?
Council, have any questions? Councilmember Palermo.
I have one question and then one comment. So my question is on number 5 for both Mr. Davidson as well as ComDev. So what we had discussed at all times was the intent that it could be adjusted, but it could be adjusted making it more lenient or more strict.
Correct.
And so I want to see, is there anything in number 5 that makes you think, ooh, I'm not sure you could adjust it stricter? Okay. So that was my question number 1. Now, if we go to the previous page, the 1 and 2. So again, even though from a lot of the examples I've seen on a project-by-project basis in Alpharetta, where it has been stronger, again, I still think this is a great improvement. And just what's relevant as well is just keeping in mind that item number 1, that's assuming there's the opportunity to build, to basically divide, 20% of the residential. But if that's not the case, then they'd skip forward to item number 2, which is where the example I'm giving is, let's say it's two large apartment buildings. So basically, you can't get a building permit for 20% of two large apartments because you need 50%. And so therefore, you jump to number 2, which again is still less strict than a lot of Alpharetta's examples, but this is something that is significant and does bring real change.
Additional comments? Yes, Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. So, a couple of things. So, could be a scenario that they finish 100% of the residential and only 80% of the non-residential?
So
Kind of number 4.
4 states building permits for the final 20% of the residential as shown on the master plan may be issued after the issuance of a CO for at least 80%. So yes, They could build that last 20% where only 80% of the commercial is done. That is a possibility.
And then the remaining 20% non-residential could never be finished, according with number 4?
Possible, yes.
Possible, okay. So, good. So then number 5, on the second line toward the end, applicant provides a security or other form of bonding assurance. Can you give us an example of what will be required in terms of security or other form of binding assurance?
I believe when we were discussing this with the Planning Commission and the council, and when we were looking through all these different items, because what we did as staff, we researched at least, about 200 different jurisdictions around the country, and gave all those copies to both the council and the Planning Commission to look at what other jurisdictions did for this. And we took a look at that, and I believe what they settled on related to this was the one out of Maryland. And they were talking about securities. So when they talk about securities, you're looking at maybe some bonds, different forms of payment that would have to be done in order to make sure that's taken care of. So somebody would pay for and submit a bond of payment to the city.
It is really crystal clear for staff when the time comes to know what kind of security or binding assurance will require?
You think good? And this council has to actually make the decision on that because that's number 5. So if they don't waive that, then technically the applicant has to do it. So if the council chooses to waive it, then the applicant at that time would basically have to answer what kind of securities do you have for us to know that it will be done. So that would be a question in a public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Additional comments from council? Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Yes, sir.
From the way this is written, it appears that you're only anticipating freestanding commercial and freestanding residential to be built as part of a single development, but it really doesn't address the issues of if you have a pedestal arrangement where you have commercial on the ground floor, residential built above. I don't know how you're going to get 25% of the non-residential square footage built before you get a building permit for the residential above. It's very narrow focused. It hasn't contemplated other construction assemblies that are more common in mixed-use development. Just makes me wonder how well thought out the rest of this is. That's what I got.
Would anyone else like to come forward and speak? Bring it back to council. Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. So as staff had mentioned, when Planning Commission was coming up with this, it was looking at real examples and especially with a lot of influence from one in Maryland. And it's my understanding this does take into account a mixed use building, because ultimately you're going to get the building permit for the whole building, which is going to include residential and non-residential. And therefore, if it follows these rules, and then there's not an issue. And if it doesn't, then it's something that staff would say, nope, you have to build this other part. But it's my understanding in all the conversations we've had with staff, this absolutely does work for mixed use buildings as well.
Councilmember Hall, do I have a motion?
Yes, Mayor. Motion to approve item number 10.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Hall. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Judy. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. Thank you. Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 11, Approval of a resolution for adoption of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan, including the Capital Improvement Element, CIE, and the Short-Term Work Program, STWP, for FY 21-22 to FY 25-26, presented by Ms. Deibel.
Yes. This is the adoption of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan, which includes the capital improvement element and the short-term work program. So this has been reviewed and approved by both the Atlanta Regional Commission and the Department of Community Affairs. It was submitted down to the state in July, and it was brought back to us in September with an approval. It is here for adoption this evening so that we can send it back to the state in order to stay in status with our qualified local government status. Portions of the comp plan, it has an introduction as Roswell Today, Community Vision section, Roswell Tomorrow, implementation, and of course the appendices. Some items within there, the needs and opportunities section included population, economic development, housing, land use and urban design, transportation and mobility, community facilities, natural and cultural resources, and the broadband. Here is the future development map that will be adopted as part of the comprehensive plan with all the new different character areas that will be in the plan. This is the 3 sub-area planning areas that were discussed with the comp plan during the process as master plans. And as stated, this went through since, interesting enough, the first public hearing for this was on March 9th of 2020, right before we shut down for the pandemic. So most all of the items for all the public engagement portions were virtual. And we had more comments throughout this process than we've had in past, due to the fact that they were virtual and people could do everything online and listen and participate that way. We also had a very good stakeholder committee that was engaging and met as much as they could virtually and in person one time. So this is the map showing the established residential character areas. And as stated earlier, you can see that we have a state, suburban, neighborhood, and active. So neighborhood and active are 2 new residential character areas. This is the activity and employment character areas with the neighborhood serving area, commercial mixed use, major activity, historic area, and industrial flex. And this is our commercial corridor and character areas with Highway 9, Parkway Village, and Holcomb Bridge Road. Also included as a separate item with the capital improvement element, which is actually a separate document and has also been approved separately by ARC and DCA, and of course the short-term work program. So the CIE are all projects that are listed from our departments that are eligible for impact fees. And then the short-term work program are a list of projects that the departments of the city work on over the next 5 years. So every year we actually do an annual update to both of these documents. This is a copy of the resolution that is in your packet. Staff does recommend the approval of the adoption of the 2040 comp plan, including the CIE and the STWP. Thank you.
Council, have any questions? Councilmember Hall.
I just want to give a big shout out to the team, to the stakeholders, to Jackie and Lenore and Kevin and everybody. You guys really did a great job. People or residents have spoken and said that the comp plan needed more colors, and that's exactly what you've delivered. It's really a wonderful document. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Palermo.
Yeah, absolutely. Great job by staff. It's a really big deal. If it wasn't a lot of work, it'd probably be more frequent than every 5 years. So I definitely see you all did a great job, and really happy to be ready to approve it. Hopefully, the majority of council will follow your recommendation tonight, and hopefully it passes. And with that, I think Mr. Gaines feels left out that he didn't get to work on this. The good news for him is, as we had discussed before, is there were some more updates that we want to make, and I do want to make sure, is that going to be ready for the October ComDev committee?
That will be on the October 27th Community Development Transportation Committee.
Excellent. I think that's a way to even really fine tune it, but all the heavy lifting, I feel you've all finished and done a great job, so congratulations.
Additional comments from council? Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Do I have a motion?
Yes, Mayor. Motion to approve item number 4, or number 11.
Motion to approve by
Going backwards.
Councilmember Hall. Do I have a second? Second by Councilmember Wilsey. All those in favor, please raise your hands, and it passes unanimously. Next, we will go to Recreation and Parks Department. Councilmember Marcelo Zapata.
Thank you, Mayor Lori Henry. So item number 12, approval of a resolution to submit a pre-application for a 2021-2022 Georgia Outdoor Stewardship Program grant from the Georgia Department of Natural Resources in the amount of $1,181,062.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As we discussed in committee today, this application is due on the 15th, and in order to submit the pre-application to be considered in the Georgia grant process, we do need a resolution of approval from this body. That is our request today, as outlined in the staff report. Be happy to answer any questions should there be any of detail on this project.
Do we have any questions from council? Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Do I have a motion, Councilmember Zapata?
Yes, Mayor. Motion to approve item number 12 of today's agenda.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Zapata. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Tizer. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is the City Attorney's Report. Mr. Davidson.
Thank you, Mayor. The only item I have is recommendation for closure to discuss personnel litigation and real estate.
Do I have a motion for closure?
Motion for closure.
Motion by Councilmember Tizer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Judy. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. We are adjourned.